mentee. So I've got a mentee account. I come into my account and I come into this onboarding area. Now, the onboarding area, the videos, the resources change a little bit. So the resources now start to cover my role as a mentee. The initial video will show you how to use the software. And all the videos you see from this one, I think it's 3 minutes long. So, it's not a lot of time involved in terms of reviewing the videos, but it will show you how to use the software. It'll give hints and tips as a mentee in terms of how to create your profile. It will get you to start to think about the goals you might want to try and achieve with your mentor. Same thing, there's some additional resources here, giving a little bit more insight or, describing the journey. So you've got a journey route map here, so you can see at a glance the different stages of the mentoring journey. It's quite a simple user journey on the platform, so it's broken down into 4 stages. So onboarding onto the platform, preparing for a first conversation, progressing the relationship, and then when appropriate and when you're ready, bringing it to a close. Now, the user journey, the user journey is structured, basically the resources are structured around the user journey. So you don't have to go looking off into a resource pool to see what's appropriate for a particular point you're at in the mentoring journey. You'll be able to see that from the stage you're at. And although you can have a look at all those resources now, they will also come up at the relevant point of the user journey. So you'll be reminded basically of them as you go through. So your next step as a mentee is to create a profile. Now, the profile here serves 2 purposes. So the first is, as a mentee, you're imparting just a little bit of information about yourself. So your organization, industry sector, how long you've been in the industry, a little bit in terms of a personal statement, just around, maybe where you are in your career, anything you think the mentor will find helpful, because when you go and you find a mentor, and we'll go to that in the next stage, it's the information on the profile that will be sent to the mentor so they can make a decision in terms of how they can best support you. Now, the other thing platform does is some of the choices you make around the expertise you're interested in, where you would be like to be supported by a mentor. Those choices will also allow the software to come back with the most appropriate mentors to meet your development needs. So the software will do some of the heavy lifting around making suggestions as to the most appropriate mentor. So we'll just complete this quickly. So you can make a choice in terms of contact preference. You can add your profile picture, and then we'll just add some areas of support we're interested in. And I should mention, these areas of support and expertise, these have all been developed with Meet Business Women. So these are configured specifically for you. We'll just put test for personal statements. And then once we're happy with our profile and we save our profile, the platform will then bring back the mentors who best meet your development requirements. So in rank order, the people who best cover the areas you're interested in. Now, at this stage, you can update your search results if you want. So, you might want to think, well, actually, I'd like to see who's available in a particular sector, or I just want to have a look at people who can offer me a specific area of support, so you can carry on searching at this point. When you're happy with your search results, you can then start to take a look at the individual mentor profiles, because on the other side of the platform, as a mentor, when you join as a mentor, you will complete your mentor profile. So it's quite similar in terms of a profile. It's just on the mentor profile, and you are making choices around where you feel confident supporting a mentee, so in terms of your own skills and expertise. Now, at this stage as a mentee, once you've had a look at the mentor's profile, you can ask some questions. So you might have questions you want to ask before you send a request. So you can enter into a little bit of the questioning process if you need to. You can also edit your personal statement, so you can make it specific to that mentor. And then when you're ready, you just send your request. So hopefully, it's a fairly simple process to complete your profile, find a mentor, send the request. And platform works on a series of engagement emails. So Helen, in this case, as a mentor, Helen will get an email to let her know she's got a mentoring request. She'll get some reminders, not annoyingly so, that we're all busy, lead to like busy lives. So if a request is missed, you'll just get a couple of reminders. And the platform will also let you know where you're up to in the process. So if you've got questions, if you've got a meeting request, that type of thing, you'll get an alert. You don't have to keep coming back into the software to see what's going on. You'll get alerts in terms of what the next step is. So far in terms of the demo, we have found the software, we've registered for an account, we've created a profile, and we've found a mentor, Helen. What I'm going to do now is going to leave the mentee view. Let's have a look at it now from the mentor perspective. So Helen will have had an email to let her know she's got a request. And when she gets that email, she clicks on the link and it will bring you into the platform. You'll have like a relationship dashboard. So if you're able to support more than one mentee, you will see those different mentees when you come into your relationship dashboard and what stage you're up to. At this stage, I just need to give a response. So I click the call to action and my request will come up on the screen. So again, you'd expect maybe a little bit more detail here in terms of the personal statement, but I can from the request, I can just accept it. Could decline the request. Now that shouldn't be because I'm too busy or I've already got enough mentees, because mentors can use the edit account function to come out of searches. So if you've got a mentee and you're happy in terms of supporting one person as a mentor, you can then come out of the searches. You can make yourself unavailable until you're ready to take on another mentee. You can ask questions. So again, if you have questions in terms of the request that you receive, please ask those, get some clarity before you accept. When we accept, the platform will then, so you'll get an initial message to let you know that the mentee has now been informed and details have been exchanged, and they'll be in touch with the first meeting. So the way the software works is it puts the responsibility for leading and driving the relationship with the mentee. But whilst the mentor is waiting for the mentee to get in touch, you've got access to a series of resources now. So again, they're designed around the user journey I mentioned. So preparing for a first conversation, the videos here will cover preparation for your first conversation, helping your mentee with their needs analysis and goal setting. There is a specific, I've just clicked on one of the PDFs there, but there is a specific video around role play. So there's a role play video in terms of how a successful first meeting can play out. And then you've got a series of PDFs that you can download, use as a checklist, take to your meeting. When you've had your first conversation and you click that off as complete, the software then opens a next series of resources, which are all around supporting your mentee achieve their goals, mentoring in a virtual environment. There's lots of tools and techniques here as well that you've got access to. Specific skills like listening skills, questioning skills, giving effective feedback. When you're ready to give feedback form. So feedback, it's great for Rebecca and colleagues to get feedback from the program. It's quite a simple evaluation questionnaire. And you can complete that on achievement of a major goal in the relationship or when you're ready to bring it to a close. And then there are resources developed around when it's appropriate, bring the relationship to a close and what to do next. So whilst the mentor is preparing, we'll just close the loop. So we'll go back. So this is the original mentee account I created. So as a mentee, I've had an email now to let me know that Helen's accepted my request. That opens up my dashboard in terms of the relationship with Helen, where I've got my messages, I've got my meetings, I've got my goals. As a mentee, when I click on next steps, I've got a message that encourages me to get that first meeting in the diary, just so that Helen knows I'm serious and we can start planning in terms of how we're going to progress. I've got the same resources as the mentor, except mine are designed for my role as mentee. Mentees have some additional, so like quite simple diagnostic resources. They're there to help you think about maybe where you are in your career, any situational challenges you might be facing. So you can start to think about, personal SWOT analysis. The G-STAR model will help funnel your ideas around goals. And then working with your mentor, if you choose to, you don't have to do this step, but it's a good one to take in that between the mentor and the mentee, you can start to think about the goals you want to achieve. So you both know what good looks like at the end of the mentoring relationship. So you can review the goals, make sure that you've achieved them, or come to an agreement that you got as far as you could before you close the agreement out. So you can create goals on the platform. You can then download those if you need to, edit them, assign them as complete. When you come back into the platform, on your dashboard, it will highlight how many goals you've got left to achieve. You've then got your messages. You can set up your meetings from the platform. So you set up your meetings. And in this instance, when you set up your meeting from mentee to mentor, the mentor will get an email. They'll be able to download the meeting request into their default calendar. And you can then start to take your notes and actions. So in essence, you can keep everything in one place in terms of the sessions you've had, the progress you've made, the actions you've agreed to complete for next time. So everything's in one place there. So that's broadly how the process works. Just a couple of other things. At any point in time, you can access all the resources designed around the user journey. So you've got access, you can, if you need a reminder or, you want to try and find a resource, they're all indexed there. You've got your help. So here you've got a reminder in terms of how the software works. You've got frequently asked questions. And you've also got the ability to contact the program administrator. So you can also contact Rebecca direct through the platform. So that's how the software works. So Rebecca, if I hand back to you.
Thank you. Thanks, Chris, so much for showing us through that. I was going to ask at this stage if there are any, before we kind of move on to speaking to Charlotte and to Michelle around their experience on the platform and how they managed it. Are there any questions around kind of how the platform works or anything that Chris said that anybody would like to ask about at this stage?
Rebecca.
Yes.
Sylvia here. Just one question on reporting. So if you were to use this, say, internally within your business, is there a reporting system where you can look at, is everybody that should be married up, and at what stage they are in the relationship, that kind of thing?
So we, sorry, I'm going to jump in if that's okay.
Of course, yeah.
And then I'll pass back to you, Chris. We send out a report of how many people are on the platform, Sylvia, but not in that much detail of who's in that journey and where. But Chris, I know that information is available, isn't it?
Yeah, so Sylvia, there's a full I've not gone through that. There's a full admin dashboard. I mean, if you ever want to, see what that looks like from a demo, I've got a demo platform, but there's a full admin dashboard. So you get a helicopter view in terms of the whole program, how it's performing, and then you can drill in to see who's matched with who, how many goals are set, goals achieved. The reporting is pretty comprehensive, to be honest.
Okay, we might link in with you separately then, Chris, to have a look at that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's fine. Yeah,
Thank
we can
you.
contact offline. Thank you.
Yeah, brilliant. So
Chris, if I don't mind asking you to stop sharing your screen for now, if that's okay. And I'm going to ask Charlotte and Michelle to come up and speak now, if that's okay. So there's a couple of questions that we sort of prepared a little bit earlier to sort of take you through the mentoring journey from Charlotte and Michelle's point of view. But if at any time you want to either pop a question in the chat, or you want to put your hand up and ask a question, or you want to just butt in and ask a question, please do, because this this session's for you really, and to make sure that everybody's kind of really getting out to bit what they want. So Michelle, can I start with you if that's okay? So start at the basics. Why did you sort of choose to be a meat business women mentor? What was it that made you decide that I really want to get involved with this?
Yeah, so it's probably going to sound a bit cliched, but it's that whole, I'd reached a point in my career where, one, I was in a position to give back to the industry. I felt that, I'd done my time. And two, that I'd seen and done enough that I could meaningfully support other women. So I'd been a mentor internally within our own business for about 6 or 7 years. And I really enjoy that process. It's mainly around our graduates. But I found that it was just a really uplifting experience of seeing these new people coming in and actually sharing part of my journey and seeing them grow and develop themselves. And I thought, well, I'm doing that internally, but actually I have got something to give back to other people across the industry. And I get this real sense of achievement when I see mentees have their light bulb. There's always a light bulb moment. You always see their face where they just go, yeah, either why didn't I think of that, or yeah, I understand what you mean now. And that's really fantastic for me as a mentor to see that happen. So that's why I chose. It's a little bit of altruism, yes, I'm giving back, but also I do like to I like to see that moment when you actually see you've made a difference to something.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much, Michelle. And Charlotte, I was going to sort of ask you the same question. What was the reason that you wanted to find yourself a mentor on the portal?
Yeah, so I guess for me, it was quite specific to where I was in my career at that time. So I first heard about the Meet Business Women Mentoring Programme at the conference last year. And I was at a very similar time in my career, getting a bit of a step up. And it was completely out of my comfort zone. So I felt quite low in confidence at that time. So including all of the mentoring that I'd been having through ABP itself since coming onto the grad scheme, I thought it was a really good opportunity to look for something external where it would be a bit more of an unbiased, confidential opinion that I could use as a soundboard to bounce some ideas off. And I thought that way I would be optimizing my growth within the business and putting myself in a really good place going forward.
That's brilliant, thank you. And how did you know, kind of, when you got yourself on the portal and you got yourself registered and you thought, right, I've made that commitment to putting time to it now. How did you know which mentor you wanted to approach, and what did that kind of initial conversation look like for you?
So kind of what Chris has already talked through, but I found it so useful because the platform's so straightforward to use that I'd ultimately put in what kind of qualities that I wanted from a mentor. So for me, it was quite specific that I wanted a mentor that was also in the manufacturing and processing industry, just because that way I could relate the most to them. And I wanted also someone with experience of a customer facing role, because that was the area that I was almost the most insecure about, and how I would act kind of more professionally within the business and how I came across. So those were the areas that I really wanted to work on myself within, but there was also the aspect that I didn't want a couple of qualities. So I didn't want someone in too much of a close role, as in category role specifically, because I didn't want to see them as much of a competitor, and get a bit competitive within myself. But I did really want to have someone that I could bounce off. So I did end up going for 2 different mentors within the platform, both very senior within their positions. And I chose them specifically because I thought that they had such a good experience way that they could offer me so much experience going forward. So the first conversations were really informal. I didn't use any of the questions that Chris talked through, but I did just send them an invitation and said, I personalised it a little bit and said that I would really like to have an initial chat with them to see what they could offer me and to see whether our personalities blended, because for me, I think that's one of the most important factors, is you need to have a bit of a trust behind them as well. So yeah, after that first initial conversation, we set up an official mentoring meeting going forward.
Brilliant, thank you. And I think that's a really, really good point around trust as well. You know, how it's, you know, you are kind of sharing quite a lot of information with these people. So, you know, you do want to build that up. Michelle, I was going to ask you around that. How do you approach kind of establishing trust and building rapport with your mentees? What do you do to do that?
So initially, obviously, this is always through the email. So I find that if we set some expectations in those first few lines of that emails, you know, what I'm willing to give, and sort of some of the expectations in return, that sort of just sets the tone for how sort of our relationship might go forward. The first face-to-face or virtual meeting, depending on where it is, really cements that. So, for example, I will never set that initial meeting at a time where I know it could get bumped. I think that very first meeting, it's really important that you don't cancel it. So that's one of the things that I do is to make sure that the times that I'm offering are times that I know it's very, very unlikely we're going to have to change it. Because as a mentor, it's quite important for me that my mentee has trust that I'm not going to, you know, every month or however often we're having our meetings, I'm not going to be emailing them or phoning up to say something's come up, I need to cancel that, you know, can we move it to here? So I always have, you know, everybody will know you sort of have some set times in the week where you're unlikely to get meetings put in. And in that, in that first meeting, you'll also establish whether the mentee's requirements really match your experiences. So I think it's really important that you're honest in that first meeting, because I think this process for me is about whether I can add value to the mentee's journey, I suppose. And you know, when you're establishing that kind of rapport in your first meeting, if what they're looking for, you've either had not any experience in or you've not dealt with, I make sure that I'm very upfront and honest with that and say, I can advise you on what I might do, or I've not dealt with that before, but we can go through it. And I think it's so important then at that point for the mentee to have the ability to sort of say, yes, I still think everything else about you is right and we want to carry on this journey, or to sort of say, just no, I don't think it's going to work. I think that's a really, because again, you're building that trust there that your mentee isn't going to just be giving you answers, you know, going to be talking to you about things that might not necessarily support them. So I think it's quite important to be honest there. And then chemistry does play a key role. And I suppose if you can't establish that chemistry in your first online meeting, then you probably need to ask each other at the end whether you're the right fit. And how I try to do that, building that trust and rapport, is that very first meeting, do what I say I'm going to do. That's the only real way that you can establish that trust there, is, you know, not cancel meetings. If I say I'm going to find a link for them because we've spoken about some information that I'm going to share, you do that. I think that's really important.
Yeah, I think, yeah, you're totally right, Michelle. Thank you. And it's yeah, from what I've taken back, it's all around kind of consistency, and yeah, making sure that, you know, you're available when you say you're going to be. So thank you. And then you've spoken there a little bit around, you know, supporting them with with their goals or with what they want to achieve. How do you kind of balance providing guidance and supporting with allowing mentees to actually kind of take ownership of their own development? What's the balance there? And also, by doing that, do you see any positive impacts on your own development as well?
So that's a really interesting question for me, because I am a natural problem solver. So I just want to give everybody answers. So to combat that, I start each meeting with the framework. So I absolutely utilize the resources on the Meet Business Women platform, because that allows me to have my questions prepped, that allows the mentees to explore their own solutions. So everybody's journey is different, but I find if there is a particular problem, because sometimes it's very general, because every mentee has something different that they're looking for. But if it's something very specific and I know an answer, my natural tendency is want to give that. So I have my questions prepped to make sure that I am asking them questions so that they can tease out their own solutions. And in some instances, mentees, they come to that meeting with their own solution. So it's really, they're just looking for affirmation. So you have your one set of questions for that scenario. Others come with sort of like half-formed ideas. So it's about teasing those out. So I've sort of got my questions for if we need to tease a bit more out of a solution. And sometimes mentees come and they're just so overwhelmed with everything that's going on, that actually the only way to provide the starting point is to give them a solution that you then tease out. I'm very much a believer in, if you can answer a question, answer the question, but then let's debate it, because my solution isn't for everybody, but this can be the starting point, particularly if they don't come with an answer themselves. So the impact being a mentor and looking at it in this way, is that it's consciously made me take a step back. And I don't know if my team will agree, but I question them a lot more now, rather than when they come to me with something. I'm finding I'm using my mentoring or coaching skills much more with my team as a whole, rather than just giving them a solution. So it's been great to sort of take that step back of being the solution provider.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And we do, I know, mentoring is kind of really up at the top of the list towards if you want to kind of step up into a position of leadership or into a management position, actually becoming a mentor can really help you do that. Because of what you just described there, Michelle, it kind of makes you step back, makes you think about how you would, treat your team or how you would question things. So I think, it can, from what I gather, it's a really good skill set to be able to use in your own managerial positions as well, if you want to step up to that. Charlotte, I'm going to come to you next, if that's okay. So how did you set about kind of getting the best out of your mentoring conversations? For example, did you set goals together? Did you, as Michelle's just said, did you kind of come with solutions in mind, or was it more of a free-flowing sort of advice session? What did that look like for you?
Yeah, I would say it differed quite differently between both of the mentors that I had at the time on the system, because I had two mentors going at the same time. It was having different conversations and using them both for their different skill sets that they could offer. So it was quite a big mix between structured conversation and keeping it really informal. As I touched on, I do prefer an informal style. That's just how I work. And I find that I am able to build trust more easily if there is that informal, no pressure in the situation, and I'm more able to speak quite openly. I definitely set goals, and I definitely had ideas of things that I wanted to work on, because the reason I went onto the platform was because I had certain aspects of my career that I wanted to progress with. So I definitely took areas to my first initial conversations with both mentors. And then after that, I just kind of let the conversations flow quite easily. I'm not sure whether they used any kind of structure on their side, but for me, it was just answering questions and speaking and keeping it as open as possible. I did make sure, though, at the end of every session, if there was, say, a goal that I said I would work on before the next session, or on their side as well, that we would follow that up. And usually we took the conversations offline as well. So with one of my mentors, they very kindly gave me like their mobile number. So before I had big reviews, I remember like my half-yearly review, I called them up just to bounce a few ideas off them before I went into that session. So it was almost taking that relationship to the next stage of how else can they help me with my day-to-day aspects, and not just meeting every couple of months.
Yeah, that's really, really. I bet that was so useful, just to know that you've kind of got that third party, I suppose, to give you some good advice there. Can I ask you, Charlotte, how frequent were your meetings with your mentor?
Yeah, so it quite depended on what we had going at that time. At the beginning, they were more regular. So the first initial meeting, I think we had our first initial conversations, and then it was about 2 weeks before our first official call. And then after that, we said, should we play it by ear and set one in the diary for 3 weeks? And then naturally, as Michelle touched on, they are likely to move sometimes. Like, we're all so busy. So the first one ended up moving to a month, so there was a month between each of the sessions. And then after about 3 or 4 sessions, and I found myself becoming more confident every time, and a lot of the conversations were just more natural and referring back to when we started to say, how are you getting on now? Is there anything more that we can help you improve on? That's when they kind of decreased in regularity, and we went to every couple of months. And now that those relationships have ended, we still check in with each other like once every couple of months now.
Thank you. Yeah, that's really useful. It's good to kind of understand the kind of format of what you went through there. And how did you? Sorry, I'm throwing another question at you here. Sorry. How did you actually come to, conclude that conversation? I know you said you'd carried on with them, maybe talking a little bit more infrequently, but how did you, end the mentorship, as it were? Did you have a conversation, or was it just to come to a natural close?
Yeah, I think it was a bit of both, because our meetings with both of my mentors, we varied between about 45 minutes and an hour. It was kind of at the end of the sessions, we thought, you know what, you've helped me with so much now that it's almost come to the natural close. With one of the mentors, I was looking for them to help me a lot with like teamwork and structure. So for that one, it was a lot of, I guess, case studies and examples. And that one came to a close quite naturally, and we just had a conversation. Thank you very much, and we'll keep in touch. And the other progressed for a longer period of time, and that's the one that I still keep in touch with now for when I need to bounce off ideas. So that was just I'll get back in touch with you if I need another session.
Thanks, Charlotte. And Michelle, I'm going to come back to you if that's okay. So Charlotte's touched a little bit there around timings, really. We all wish there was another 2 or 3 hours in the day, I'm sure, and we know that lack of time can be a real challenge when it kind of comes to prioritizing our own personal development, because it's like things get pushed to the top of the list, and your personal development inevitably gets pushed all the way further down. So what would you say to this in relation to mentoring?
So I think it's probably the same as everything in life. If you truly believe in the process, you'll find the time. It's like, it might be the gym, or anything that typically people want to do for themselves that's sort of outside of the daily work. You say, oh, I don't have enough time to do that. But actually, if you really want to do it, if there's some goal at the end of it that you really want to achieve, you'll find the time. But for myself, and I will say, I struggled with this sort of when I was in my sort of mid-20s to early 30s. I really struggled to prioritize any kind of development for myself. So now what I did then, and what I still continue to do now, is that I have this time, I have me time within my working week. And that was some advice given to me by my internal mentor within our business. I have an hour a week, and that's my minimum. So sometimes it's 2, but there is this time that I book, and it's non-negotiable. And unless obviously something happens extreme, but it's non-negotiable. That's my hour to do whatever I want to do, whether it's reading a paper, whether it's researching something online, whether it's, whatever it is, I spend that on me, because it will help further down the line. It's always that thing, I can't seem to progress in my career. And it's, yeah, but what are you doing to assist yourself? And I say, oh, well, I don't have time to do anything. Well, that's probably the reason why you're not maybe progressing, because you've got to give yourself that time. So in relation to this as being a mentor, that is something that I always try and recommend to people, is that they give themselves this time, and it may not be able to be within the working day. It might have to be of a weekend or an evening, but it's prioritizing that time for yourself. But again, it goes back to that. Don't sign up for something if you're not prepared to see it through. Don't sign up to be a mentee or a mentor if you haven't got the time, or you don't think you're going to be able to do that, because again, that just that doesn't provide the trust and the rapport within the relationships. That's what I would say.
Yeah, thank you.
And it's not easy. So sorry, I'm not saying that that's easy either. It's not easy, but yeah, there's sometimes, if this is important to you, carve out that piece of time for yourself.
Absolutely, yeah. And like you said, if it's an hour a week, that obviously makes a huge difference. And with a mentor-mentee relationship, if it's an hour a month, that feels manageable. It feels like that's really doable. I'm going to just go to the floor now and see if we've got any questions from anybody attending. If you want to stick your hand up, or if you want to ask any questions, please do. There were a couple came in via registration, so I'll give it a couple of minutes and make sure. Oh, we've got a raised hand. Hi, Harriet.
Hi, everyone. A quick one from me. I just before I ask a question, I just wanted to agree with Michelle, really. My experience, so in my past role, we had Focus Fridays. So we used to block out our Friday afternoon, and we were working, but really we had to allocate that time to personal development, which I found really useful, and have taken that forward into this role. And actually I use that time to do any mentoring meetings that I have during that time. So really good advice there. I was just wondering what opportunities there are from a global perspective, and what other countries represented on our platform, Bex?
Thank you. Yeah, so that's it's a really good point. We obviously Meet Businesswomen, as some of you will know, is a global community. So whilst this masterclass is happening on UK time, we have a global community of women, and on the mentoring portal, that's really represented. I know that we've got representatives from Australia, from New Zealand, but also a lot wider than that as well. So if that is something that you're wanting to look at, we're not just based in the UK and Ireland. That is an opportunity there that you can get a mentor or a mentee from different countries as well. Harriet, I know you mentored somebody in India, is that right, when you did it a couple of years ago?
Yeah, that was my first experience platform, actually, which was just really interesting, just to learn about a completely different culture, but also the meat industry in a different country. And I also then had a mentoring relationship with somebody in Australia, early mornings or late nights, but really well worth it, because again, just experiencing another culture, really. But there's so many similarities as well, which is amazing. I think just broadening your horizons a bit in terms of who you could go out to.
Yeah, great, thank you. Anybody else who wants to jump in, ask a question? Like I said, I've got a couple here, so I'll give you a few minutes, but I was going to ask these in the meantime. What advice, and these are coming with people that have registered, so I might be asking your question here. What advice would you give to people who are feeling a little bit stagnant in their careers and want to take the next step? Michelle, I'm going to ask you that, if that's okay, as our resident mentor.
But I've also been a mentee on the platform as well, so I've seen it from both ways. So some advice if they're feeling a bit stagnant. I would definitely recommend joining up and getting a mentor, just to talk through the areas of why you're feeling stagnant in that role, what your opportunities, just teasing out those sort of questions about why, whether it's the situation that's stagnant or whether it is the actual role, just teasing out where you could go from there. But I would certainly say taking advice from all from either people within your own business or externally might help you come out of that block, I suppose.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. It can just be acting as a really good, someone just as a soundboard, definitely, to kind of get that third party perspective and give you a bit of advice around that, and even just, maybe even ask you questions that you think, I've never been asked that before, I've never thought about it in that way, and even that can kind of trigger new ideas in your head.
And sometimes you've just fallen out of it. You're stagnant because you've fallen out of love, I suppose, with what you're doing. Maybe you've been doing it for a long time, or nothing's really changed, or everything's changing around you, and it's just that different perspective.
Definitely. Another one that came in was around contacting your mentor. So it says here, if your mentor is quite high level at seniority, how do you ask for their time without being too pushy, without nagging? When you know that they're really busy, they receive a lot of emails, or maybe they're not based in the same location as you. Charlotte, I was going to ask you, how did you kind of do that with your mentor? Because I know we are really conscious that we're asking for people's time here, and we want to make sure that we're not nagging them too much. So how did you kind of manage that from your side?
Well, I think when you sign up both as a mentee and a mentor, you're kind of making the agreement with yourself and whoever you're mentoring that you're kind of promising that time, and you've got the time available. So I think there's an almost unspoken rule that they're giving you that time, and if you're asking for a session, they're willing to give that to you. That's part of the trust piece, I think. So I was just used open communication and said, when are you free? At the end of each session, we would usually open up both of our calendars and just talk through and say, Friday's the best for me. Like, the Focus Friday is such a good point. And our sessions did tend to be back end on a Friday when less people were going to be nagging us. We were going to have less things popping up on our laptops, so we could allow ourselves to stay focused.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's it. It's not necessarily something that you'd want to do on a Monday morning, isn't it? Because you want to come in and clear your inbox and get to work. So yeah, that makes sense.
I think it's just also having the confidence and knowing you've gone for them for help. So, well, not even help, but advice and a soundboard, like you say. So just have the confidence to say, I need this for myself and my own development. You've agreed to give it to me, and just be able to speak up and say, I think I would like these sessions to be this regular. How does it work for you?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, like you said at the beginning, everyone that's registered as a mentor on the portal is there, to give their time, and it's something that they're obviously really, really keen to do. And it's probably worth noting as well that when you are a mentor on our portal, you can pause your profile. So, let's say you've registered and you've been on for like 2 or 3 months and you're really enjoying it, but you think, do you know what, over summer, I'm just going to be absolutely stacked. I just don't have time for this. You can pause your profile and then come back to it and unpause it afterwards. So that's really useful as well. You don't have to, take yourself off the portal. There's no other questions popped up, so I was just going to ask both Michelle and Charlotte if there's any other kind of advice or any, nuggets of information that you would give everyone on the call around mentoring, if they were considering it, or if it's something that they've toyed with for a while and they're not quite sure. Is there any other pieces of advice that you want to share with them? I'll go to, who wants to take that first? I'll go to Charlotte. You've unmuted yourself there. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess because I've been in the position quite regularly at the moment, it's so easy to look at the negatives of a situation, and so easy to think, oh, I'm not doing very well, or I'm not going to get there in my career. But it's harder to actually think positively. And instead of thinking at the negatives, oh, I'm nervous, or what if they think my problems are kind of a bit irrelevant, think about what of the positives you could get from the experience. So they could help me with this, or I might progress to here. And that way it's just a bit more of a positive outlook, and it will encourage you to go for it, because no one's going to be an advocate for yourself better than you. So just make that step and go for it.
Love that. That's brilliant advice. Thank you.
And then I suppose my advice, very similar along lines to Charlotte, it's about being open and honest, and understanding that at points you might be uncomfortable, both as a mentor and a mentee. You're gonna sort of, the experience is opening you up to being honest with yourself. You can't ever progress if you're not really getting to the heart of the problem. And then it's about having that trust that the other person is going to take the information that you've given them and they're going to respect those boundaries and they're going to do the best with it. So it's knowing that the more you give, the more you're going to get out of the experience. You know, if you've chosen a mentee or a mentor that Charlotte's already said about, you know, potentially being in a competitive set, the same, you're never probably really going to have that real trust. So yes, that person might have the most experience, but actually if you're always going to be holding something back, that's probably not the best person to have as your as your mentee. But anybody considering it, it is just be prepared to sort of open yourself up to being slightly uncomfortable
and challenged, I suppose, isn't it? But yeah, it's definitely. But like you said, it's, you know, that's when you, I suppose that's when you grow the most, isn't it? When you're actually challenged and you're pushed outside of your comfort zone. So yeah, that's really good advice. Thanks so much, Michelle. So I guess the last thing to say really is how to actually get onto the portal. So I know Chris has kind of gone through that really useful demo at the top of the call. But I think most people in here, I can recognise some names. I think most people are members of Meet Businesswomen. If you're not, please do sign up. But how to actually get onto the portal is you would just log on to your members portal. If you're having trouble, send me an email after the call. And it's just in the drop-down menu at the top. So you go onto the mentoring portal, and then you can get started. So you can register on there and then go through that process that Chris showed us. So should be really, really straightforward. But you know, our team are always here to help you through. And also, if you've got any questions that, you know, maybe you didn't want to bring up today in front of everybody, but you still want answering, I'm sure Charlotte or Michelle will be happy to answer those. So I can always ping them across to them afterwards. I've recorded this session as well, so it's going to be available for you to watch back, or if you want to send it to any other members that you think might be interested in it, please do. But I'd just like to say a big thank you, unless we've got any other last minute questions or anything. Raise your hand now. No, that's fine. I just wanted to double check. Yes, I was just going to say really, really big thank you to Chris for coming on today, and also to Charlotte and to Michelle for giving up your time. I think that's been a really useful session. So huge thank you to all three of you, and to everybody else for joining. The next masterclass is next week, actually. So if you're able to, please do join us for that. And we'll see you all very soon.
Thank you.
Rebecca.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.